The bench is still there. It sits at the edge of Calverton Park the way it always has, weathered and quiet, half hidden beneath the sprawling arms of an old oak tree that has watched over this town longer than anyone alive can remember. Most people walk past it without a second glance. A bench is just a bench. Wood and iron. Something to rest your feet on when the world gets too heavy to carry standing up. But the people of Calverton do not walk past that bench the way they used to. They slow down now. Some stop entirely. Some leave flowers. Some leave notes. One woman leaves a small stone every single morning on her way to work, the way certain cultures mark a grave, the way people honor a place where something sacred happened. And when strangers ask why, the people of Calverton tell them about the night a Hell's Angel named Raya Cruz rides through their town and finds a 12-year-old boy sitting alone in the dark, a folded letter on the bench beside him, his face buried in his hands, and his whole small body folded inward like something already trying to disappear. They tell them what is in that letter. And they tell them what happens after. Raya Cruz rides the way she breathes. Without thinking about it. Without effort. The road is just an extension of her body, the engine just another heartbeat, the wind just another way the world talks to people willing to listen. She is 34 years old and she has been riding since she is 16, since the night she steals her older brother's bike out of the driveway on a dare and discovers that speed is the only thing that makes the noise in her head go quiet. That was 18 years ago. The noise is still there sometimes. But she always has the road. She is passing through Calverton on a Tuesday night in October, cutting across to the Eastern Highway, not planning to stop, not even planning to slow down. She knows this stretch of road. She has ridden it 100 times. The park sits on her left just past the old grain mill, a dark green smear of trees and lamplight that she registers the way you register a familiar landmark, something your eyes record without your brain fully engaging. But her brain engages tonight. Because there is a boy on the bench. She almost does not see him. He is small and still and dressed in dark clothing and the lamplight above him barely reaches his shoulders. But something in the shape of him catches her. The way he is sitting. Not the restless looseness of a child who is bored or waiting for a parent or killing time before dinner. This boy is folded. Collapsed inward. His elbows are on his knees and his face is in his hands and he is so utterly still that for one terrifying second Raya thinks he is not breathing. She pulls over before she makes a conscious decision to do it. The bike rumbles to the curb and she cuts the engine and sits there for a moment, straddling the seat, looking at him through the bars of the park fence. He does not look up. She takes off her helmet. Hooks it over the handlebars. Runs a hand through her dark hair and looks up at the sky for a second the way she always does when she needs to collect herself, the stars blinking down at her like they always have something to say and never quite manage to say it clearly enough. Then she opens the gate and walks in. She sits down on the bench beside him without saying anything. Not 2 feet away. Just sits. The way you sit next to someone when words feel like the wrong tool for the job. He does not run. He does not flinch away. He just goes very still in a different way, the way prey animals go still when something larger enters their space, that frozen assessment of threat or safety that happens below the level of thought. The letter is between them on the bench. A single sheet of white paper, folded into thirds, the way you fold a letter you plan to put in an envelope. The outside of it reads, in a careful, deliberate child's handwriting that breaks Raya's heart before she even reads a single word inside, to anyone who finds this. She does not touch it. She does not reach for it. She sits with her hands on her knees and she looks out at the dark park and she says, quietly, "Cold night." The boy says nothing. "You been out here long?" "Nothing. I'm Raya." She leaves a beat of silence. You don't have to tell me your name. You don't have to tell me anything. He lifts his face from his hands. Just slightly. Just enough for her to see his profile in the lamplight. He is maybe 11 or 12. Brown hair hanging over his forehead. Jaw set in that particular way children set their jaws when they are trying desperately not to cry in front of someone they do not know. His eyes are red and swollen in a way that tells her he has already been crying. For a long time. Alone. You ride motorcycles? He asks. His voice is thin and raspy and it sounds like it costs him something to use it. All my life. He looks at the bike parked at the curb. Is that yours? Every inch of it. He is quiet for another moment. Then he says, my dad used to ride. Used to. Past tense. Raya hears everything in those two words. What happened? She asks. He picks up the letter. Holds it in both hands without opening it. Stares at it. And then, without looking at her, he holds it out. She takes it carefully. The paper is soft at the folds, handled many times, the way paper gets when someone has folded and unfolded it over and over, building up to something, rehearsing for something. She opens it slowly and in the amber wash of the park lamp she reads what a 12-year-old boy named Eli Marsh has written about himself. The letter begins, I know nobody is going to miss me that much. It does not read the way a child writes when they are angry or performing or trying to get someone's attention. It reads the way a child writes when they have thought about something very carefully and arrived at a conclusion they believe is simply true. Matter of fact. The handwriting is neat and deliberate. He has taken his time with this. He writes that his name is Eli. He writes that he is 12 and he goes to Calverton Middle School and he is in the 6th grade. He writes that his dad died 14 months ago in a road accident and his mom works 2 jobs and comes home so tired she barely speaks and he does not want to make things harder for her by being sad all the time so he tries not to be. He writes that he had a best friend named Daniel but Daniel moved away in the summer and nobody at school talks to him much and he sits alone at lunch every day and has done for 3 months. He writes that he knows some people have it worse. He writes that he is not trying to complain. Then he writes the thing that makes Raya's hands go completely still on the paper. He writes, I just think it would be easier for everyone if I was not here anymore. I think Mom would be less stressed. I think nobody at school would really notice. I think the world would basically stay the same and maybe be a little bit quieter and I am tired of being so tired all the time. I do not know how to explain it except that I feel like I am invisible already so maybe being gone is not that different. He writes that he is sorry for leaving the letter on the bench. He writes that he did not know where else to put it. He writes that he hopes whoever finds it has a good life. He signs it, Eli J. Marsh. Age 12. Raya sits with the letter in her hands for a long time. There are things she could say. She knows what the pamphlets say. She knows what the hotline scripts say. She has had enough darkness of her own to know that those words, correct as they are, sometimes feel like a screen door between you and the person saying them. Present but not quite reaching you. She folds the letter back along its creases. Sets it on her knee. And she says, you know what the worst part about being invisible is? Eli looks at her. You start to believe it. You see yourself the way you think everyone else sees you, which is not at all, and you figure they must be right. She pauses. I did that for a long time. He stares at her. You? Me. She turns to look at him directly for the first time. You think someone wearing a Hell's Angels patch never felt invisible? Feeling invisible is why a lot of us ended up on bikes in the first place. Louder and faster and taking up more space than anyone can ignore. He almost smiles. Not quite. But almost. Your dad, she says. He ride with a club? No. Just on his own. On weekends. Eli looks at his shoes. He used to take me on the back sometimes. When I was little. Before I was old enough to be scared. What changed? I got old enough to know what could go wrong. She nods slowly. Smart kid. Not smart enough. His voice breaks on the last word and he catches it and pulls it back and stares harder at his shoes. Hey. Her voice is very quiet. Being sad about your dad is not a character flaw. Being lonely is not a character flaw. Feeling like you are drowning and not knowing how to say so is not a character flaw. You hear me? He does not answer. But he does not look away either. Eli. She waits until he looks at her. I need to ask you something and I need you to be straight with me. He waits. Are you safe right now? Tonight. Right now. A long pause. The kind of pause that costs something on both sides. Then, very quietly, I don't know. She does not leave him. She does not call emergency services in a way that feels like an alarm going off, like the world suddenly descending on this small quiet boy with clipboards and uniforms and loud procedural language. She sits with him. She calls a number she knows, a woman named Dr. Carla Reyes who runs the youth crisis program 2 towns over and who Raya has volunteered with 3 times in the last 2 years, quietly, without telling anyone, because Raya Cruz does not do things for the credit. Carla answers on the second ring. Raya talks to her for 4 minutes with Eli listening, not hiding the conversation, not pretending it is something other than what it is. She says, there is a boy. She says his name. She says what she has read. She says he is with her right now and he is safe and she is not going anywhere. Carla says she is on her way. 40 minutes. Raya hangs up and looks at Eli. She is good, she says. You will like her. She is not going to make you feel crazy. I am not crazy, he says. Quietly but firmly. I know that. I just got tired. I know that too. They sit in silence for a while. Not uncomfortable silence. The kind of silence that has some air in it. Raya pulls off her leather jacket and holds it out to him and he takes it without argument and wraps it around his shoulders and it swallows him whole and she almost loses her composure right there, looking at this child wrapped in her jacket, 12 years old and so exhausted by a grief nobody noticed he was carrying. She asks him about his dad. She asks carefully, softly, the way you ask about something that is also a wound. And Eli talks. Haltingly at first, then more steadily. He talks about the Saturday morning rides. The way his dad always stopped at the same gas station diner for eggs and bad coffee and let Eli order whatever he wanted. The way he smelled like motor oil and cedar. The way he laughed, which Eli demonstrates briefly, unexpectedly, a short deep ha that is clearly an impression, and then Eli's face does something complicated and he looks away and Raya gives him the space to do that. She tells him about her own losses. She does not compete with his grief. She just places hers beside it so he can see that the territory is not foreign to her. Her mother. A brother. A friend she lost to the road when she is 22. She tells him that loss does not get smaller. You just get bigger around it. How? He asks. People, she says. You let people in. Even when it is the last thing you want to do. Carla Reyes arrives in 38 minutes. She is a small woman with close-cropped hair and reading glasses pushed up on her forehead and the kind of calm that is not performed, not professional distance, but actual steadiness, the kind that comes from years of sitting in the dark with people and choosing to stay. She shakes Eli's hand first, which he does not expect, and she tells him her name and she asks if it is okay if she sits down, and something about being asked shifts something in him visibly, his shoulders dropping a half-inch, his jaw unclenching. Raya steps back. Not away. Just back. Giving them room. She calls Eli's mother. Sandra Marsh answers on the fifth ring, her voice carrying the particular exhaustion of a woman running on empty, and when Raya explains who she is and where Eli is and that he is safe, the silence on the other end of the phone is the loudest thing Raya has ever heard. Then Sandra makes a sound that is not a word, just a sound, the sound a person makes when something they did not know they were bracing for finally lands. She is there in 11 minutes. She runs the last 100 feet from her car to the bench and she drops to her knees in front of her son and wraps both arms around him, and Eli, who has held himself together through the whole night with a composure that has broken Raya's heart in 12 different ways, finally breaks. He cries into his mother's shoulder with the full body abandon of a child, great shaking sobs that sound like release, like something that has been sealed under pressure for 14 months finally finding a way out. Sandra looks up at Raya over her son's shoulder. Her eyes are streaming. She mouths 2 words. Thank you. Raya nods. Looks away. Studies the lamplight above the bench with great concentration. Carla Reyes meets with Eli and Sandra 3 times in the following week. She connects Sandra with a grief counselor who works on a sliding scale. She connects Eli with a youth group that meets on Thursday evenings, kids who have lost parents, who gather in a church hall 2 streets from the school and eat bad pizza and talk, which sounds insufficient and turns out to be enormous. The school counselor, a man named Mr. Adeyemi who has been quietly worried about Eli for weeks without quite knowing how to act on it, is briefed carefully and responds by rearranging Eli's lunch period so he shares it with a boy named Theo who also rides bikes, the pedal kind, and who has been looking for someone to talk to about sprockets and gear ratios for the better part of a semester. Eli and Theo become friends within 2 weeks. The kind of friends that develop fast when both parties are starving for it. But the story does not end with Eli. Because Raya, before she leaves Calverton that night, does something she has not planned. She takes the letter. She asks Sandra's permission and Sandra gives it, and Raya folds the letter back into her jacket pocket and she rides home thinking about it, and she sits with it for 4 days, and then she calls a friend of hers named Joe who runs a small non-profit that works with grieving children, and she reads her the letter over the phone, with Sandra's permission, with Eli's permission, the names changed, and Joe is silent for a long time after and then says, "How many Ellis are out there right now, tonight? Sitting on benches?" The answer to that question becomes a project. Joe and Raya together, with 2 other women from Raya's chapter and a retired teacher named Mrs. Okafor who has been trying to find something useful to do with herself since her husband passed, launch a program they call The Bench. It is not complicated. It does not have a slick brand identity or a polished website in the beginning. It is a text line. A number painted on benches in 6 parks across 3 towns, including the bench in Calverton Park, which is repainted and marked with a small brass plaque that reads, "You are not invisible here." The number connects to trained volunteers, real people, available between 4 in the afternoon and 2 in the morning, which is when the darkness gets loudest. In the first 3 months, the line receives 214 contacts. 61 of them are children under 16. Calverton changes. Not overnight. Not in a single dramatic gesture. It changes the way real communities change, which is slowly and imperfectly and with a lot of backsliding and a lot of people not quite getting it right on the first try, but moving, consistently, in a direction that is better than where they started. The school runs a mental health assembly that is not the usual laminated poster and pamphlet exercise but a real conversation, facilitated by Carla Reyes, where students are invited to write anonymously what they wish adults knew about how they were feeling. The answers fill 3 whiteboards. Mr. Adeyemi photographs them and pins them in his office where he can read them every morning before the halls fill with children. Sandra Marsh begins volunteering with the bench on Saturday nights. She says she does it because she understands now, with a clarity that arrived at great cost, how invisible a person can become even to someone who loves them, when everyone is too exhausted to look up. Eli's letter, the version with names changed, is read at a town hall meeting by the mayor, who is not a person known for public emotion, and who stops twice to collect herself. The room is very quiet when she reads the part about the world being basically the same if he is not in it. The kind of quiet that means people are rearranging something inside themselves. Raya does not come back to Calverton for 4 months. She is not a person who does things for the follow-through, for the gratitude, for the bow tied on the ending. She rides and she helps when she sees it is needed and she moves on, because that is who she is. But in February she gets a text from a number she does not recognize. It reads, "This is Eli Marsh. I wanted you to know I'm okay. I'm better than okay actually. I started riding again. Pedal bike but still. My friend Theo and I did 12 miles on Saturday. Also I started talking to this counselor and she said something you said too, about getting bigger around the grief. I looked it up and it's a real thing. It's called post-traumatic growth. I thought you should know you were right about that." Raya reads the message twice. Sits for a moment. Types back, 12 miles is serious. Keep going. Then she puts the phone in her pocket and goes out to the bike. She rides north, into the cold February air, the road opening up ahead of her the way it always does, wide and honest and indifferent to everything except the fact of forward motion. The noise in her head is quiet. The way it gets sometimes. The way it gets on the best rides, on the days when she has done something that matters and the road knows it even if it will never say so. She thinks about the bench. About the lamplight falling on a folded piece of paper. About a 12-year-old boy who writes his own eulogy because he does not know another way to say that he is disappearing and he needs someone to notice. Someone noticed. That is the whole story. And it is also the beginning of every story that comes after it. Because noticing is the thing. It is the entire thing. It is the bench and the plaque and the text line and the Thursday night group and Theo and the 12 miles and the 214 contacts and Mrs. Okafor who bakes terrible scones for every volunteer meeting and does not apologize for them. It is all of it, every single thread of it, and it runs all the way back to one woman who sees a small still shape in the dark and decides that the road can wait. The bench is still there. The lamplight still falls on it the same way. But the boy who sat there that night is 12 miles down the road and gaining speed, and the world, which he once believed would be basically the same without him, is measurably, demonstrably, irrevocably different because he is in it. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Iron Heat Stories, and leave a comment below telling us what part of this story stayed with you. Your support means everything and it helps us keep telling stories that matter. The bench is still there. And now you know why the people of Calverton slow down when they pass it. Why they leave flowers and notes and small stones. Why a woman stops every morning on her way to work and places something quiet on the wood. Because a bench is not just a bench. Sometimes it is the place where someone almost disappears. And someone else, engine still warm, helmet in hand, chooses to sit down instead of riding on. That is the whole story.